Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Vermont's Teacher of the Year has returned from the nation's capital, where she was honored alongside other state winners in a ceremony at the White House. Karen McCalla is a librarian and technology integration specialist at Mill River Union High School in Clarendon. She was chosen as Vermont's top teacher at the start of the school year and is now part of a team that will select the 2023 Vermont Teacher of the Year. During her time in Washington, Miss McCalla was paired with the New Hampshire Teacher of the Year. And she was part of a special lesson at the Smithsonian, which focused on Harriet Tubman. Today, Karen McCalla joins us via Zoom to reflect on her tenure as a Teacher of the Year and her time in Washington. Thank you so much for being with us, Karen.
Oh, thank you for having me, Fran. I'm so excited to be here.
So let's start with the White House ceremony. You heard from both the President and First Lady Jill Biden. Jill taught at high school and college. What message did she have for you and all the teachers of the year?
It was wonderful to talk with both the Bidens, and Dr. Biden was really interested in expressing her gratitude and understanding. As a teacher herself, she's still a full-time teacher teaching at the college level. It was really important for her to talk with us about her understanding of how hard things have been during the pandemic and how hard she knows that we work. And it was wonderful to be able to speak with her and also hear President Biden's appreciation for her work. He made mention many times of how hard she works making things happen for students that she works with.
Did you say she was still teaching?
Yes, she teaches full time.
That's really remarkable. Well, she's doing 110 or 50% like all of you in schools are as well. And you know, one of the most popular things to do in Washington, of course, is to visit the Smithsonian Museum, which is actually 17 museums and galleries. You visited the Smithsonian in a way that many of us never get to experience. Tell us about that.
It was such a wonderful day. So we were able to spend time together, our full Teacher of the Year group, so all 56 of us, spent time in the Smithsonian Castle. So for people who've been to DC, it's that big red building that looks like a castle. And it's not always open to the public. So it was really special for us to be able to have time inside that building to work with each other. And then we were also able to work with the Smithsonian education team. The Smithsonian employs a really big group of people who work with teachers all over the country, mostly remotely, but sometimes when teachers bring their classes to Washington, to extend those collections out into the community. Not every kiddo is going to be able to go to Washington, D.C. to be able to see the Smithsonian museums in person. So we talked a lot about how to take the collections back to our schools through bringing kids into the internet and looking at the Smithsonian things that way. But then we were also able to visit the museums in person, of course.
Right. Well, that's really awesome, especially for a librarian, how to really take on the resources of the United States and what they have at the Smithsonian. And I am really looking forward someday to get to the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which is where you got to go. I guess you split up into some groups, and that's where your group went. Tell us about that.
Yes, it was so interesting because it's one of the Smithsonian museums that I have not yet had a chance to visit. And so when I learned I was in that grouping, I was really excited because the last time I was in DC, that museum didn't exist yet. So it's one of the newest ones. And we were paired with some of their education leaders, and we got to see a brand new exhibit that they were putting together called Reckoning, which is about Reconstruction and sort of tracing the impact of Reconstruction after the Civil War all the way up to today in the United States. And one of the people who was doing our education work with us was actually the exhibit designer for that. So be able to talk to her about the very specific decisions they made about even how the items are displayed and which items they choose. They have millions of items that they can pick from. And so trying to put an exhibit together where you can only choose representatives, maybe only 15 things.
And a tricky, rough piece of history.
Yes. And making that that history and all the traumatic and terrible parts of that, and then also the inspiring parts of it, easy to understand for people who are accessing the museum's collections, who might be students, who might be older people, all across the spectrum. Sure. It's really interesting.
Well, and you focused on art about Harriet Tubman while you were there. It was part of this lesson at the museum.
Yes, we were able to look deeply at a few pieces from the collection and really talk about how the museum staff picks certain pieces and then places other pieces around them to add to the full understanding that can get gained. And one of the real big takeaways for me from visiting the Smithsonian's was that sometimes when I use resources like that as a teacher, it feels like drinking out of a fire hose. There's so millions of things, and how do I help my students narrow down the things that they want to look at? And having the education staff, who are just amazing teachers, help us think about looking deeply at just one or two pieces. Don't try to drink out of the fire hose. Like, pick those one or two pieces that students could look at really carefully and closely and talk about deeply, rather than looking at 10 pieces.
So you have some examples that you brought with us. So let's take a look at some of those Harriet Tubman pieces. There's a quilt, gorgeous.
Yes. The quilt was amazing. So on the left here, you see the full size version of the quilt. And this is a quilt made by Bisa Butler, who's a contemporary textile artist. And she made this after a photo. So this was a photo that was kind of lost in the collection, and people had forgotten that it was even part of the Smithsonian collection. And when it was found, she was very inspired by it. And so she made this quilt. So the size of the quilt is regular bed-size quilt, so it's a big quilt. And when you walk up towards it, you start seeing little things in the quilt itself. So the picture on the right is a close-up of the bottom of her skirt, and there's a little lion quilted in there.
It's amazing.
And so there's all these little I don't want to call them hidden messages, because they're not really hidden. You just have to look to see them, messaging about Harriet's life and her impact. And even the color choices, like the color of Harriet's skin is talking about the contrasts that she experienced in her life. And reading the artist statement and then looking so carefully at this quilt was an amazing experience.
Right, and there's one other piece of hers. This is going to be a life-size statue at some point.
Yep, this is a study for a life-size memorial to Harriet Tubman, and it's hard to tell from the picture. It is really small, but if people look at the Smithsonian website, you can find the full-size picture of this that you can really zoom in. But if you look really closely on Harriet's skirt, there's even little faces and hands and feet kind of coming out of her skirt, and there's roots on the back of her skirt, like she's pulling people or land along with her. And even in the front of the skirt, there's some little things that might be pleats on her skirt, but it also reminded us of kind of a locomotive, like she was really pulling forward, and it looks like the sort of cow catcher on a locomotive.
Yeah. It's beautiful, and of course we can't talk about Washington unless we talk about politics a little bit. It's where laws are made and debated, and during your visit there was a day devoted to legislative priorities, and you were paired with your counterpart from New Hampshire.
Yes, so the New Hampshire Teacher of the Year, Sarah Casasa, and I visited some of our representatives on the Hill, and were able to get inside the Capitol building. There we are together. Get inside the Capitol building and look at some of the office buildings, which most people don't really get to visit in person. So that was really an interesting experience and a wonderful opportunity to talk with folks who can really make changes in education policy. To talk with them one-on-one about what changes we see needing to happen right here on the ground floor.
Right, including STEM, which is a special
Yep.
niche for you. And
Yep.
you also spent time with, all the other teachers of the year from the other New England states. Did you find common ground with those folks?
Yes. So here we are, all the New England Teachers of the Year together. We had a day at the Department of Education where we got to talk with people at the department about what we saw as needs moving forward. And it was really interesting to have commonality with the other Teachers of the Year from New England, but also commonality with people from all over the country. And it was interesting to hear how many of our stories were really similar of the challenges of teaching, the amazing stories of impacting students in your classrooms, a lot of commonality, and what a wonderful opportunity to meet some amazing teachers.
Right, mainly women, I'm noticing. And of course, you are a librarian, the first librarian to be chosen as Teacher of the Year. I love that because libraries are so important to all of us. But you were with all the best teachers from all of the states and the territories, including previous winners. What did you learn from all this?
I really took away the ability to create this network of people. So we have become a really close-knit group, and I think this is true for every Teacher of the Year group. These are people who I can call on when I feel stuck in my classroom, when I need a little inspiration, when I have a thing that I'd like to celebrate. One of my students does something amazing. This is a group of teachers who are so excited to cheer each other on, to keep each other upbeat. Sometimes teaching can feel kind of solitary. Even though we teach with other groups in our school, a lot of school librarians are single people in their school. So I'm the only librarian in my school. And so having other folks who have this shared experience to connect with is really exciting. The Oklahoma Teacher of the Year is also a school librarian. So we hang out a little bit too.
I bet you did. And now it's on to the 2023 Teacher of the Year. You're interviewing for candidates and looking forward to bringing that new person on.
Yes, I'm so excited for the 2023 Vermont Teacher of the Year to be named. The other thing that's an amazing is
quickly, we're just out of time. So a Twitter message. Karen, thank you so much. Sorry to interrupt. It's been great to see you, and welcome back home. And thank you for all you do.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always great to talk with you.
And thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard.